Start. Alrighty, and it's recording, and we are getting started with our amazing webinar today that we are going to be talking about what to know before you grow. I have my amazing co-host, Andrew Lamppa here, and I just I'll tell you a little bit about me. My name is Alisa McCabe. I'm the owner at First Steps Financial, which is a fractional controller and bookkeeping firm, and we collaborate with our clients, and we make sure that they are profitable, and we have a proven process that can really help our clients. And we're going to just do a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and we will answer them as they come up. And at the end of our presentation, we're going to provide links for information on how to get to us. And everybody in here will be getting a recording of the webinar, and again, our contact information. So if you want to reach out to us. With that, I'm going to tell you why I work with Andrew. He is truly amazing. He and I met, and we both had the same mission, and that is to help small businesses create success, but for the purpose of a good life for the owner, a good impact on the employees, and also an impact on their community at large, because we love purpose-driven businesses, and we just really connected on that. And he is brilliant, and he is going to start the presentation, and he's going to go through how to create clarity. He's also going to tell you more about himself. And then I'm going to come in and take over and talk about what's the number side of everything that he talked about. So Andrew, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alisa. So we're going to start with a question. And my question for you all is, when you hear the acronym DTR, what comes to mind? Now, I'm a 80s kid, I'm a 90s kid, so maybe it might not apply. But for me, when I hear DTR, I think determine the relationship. It's a conversation me and my friends had in junior high and high school, and probably even college, where we're hanging out with someone, but we're not sure what's going on. So we need to have our DTR conversation. We need to determine the relationship. I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but it definitely does me. Like Alisa said today, I really want to focus on one thing, and that's clarity. Clarity in what the relationship looks like between you and your employees, between business owner and the staff. Because I think that is one of the biggest opportunities we are missing out on, is really having a high level of clarity in roles, responsibilities, expectations. I mean, across the board, business owners struggle with clarity when it comes to defining who their ideal client is, what their best offer is, who's their most profitable customer. Why should someone go with them instead of one of their competitors? Like, how are they different? So clarity across the board is such a gift. And I think there's a lot that they're missing the boat, but we're focusing on clarifying the relationship between the business owner and his or her employees. But first, let me talk a little bit about who I am. So my name is Andrew Lamppa. I'm the founder of Built to Benefit. My last business was doing 7 figures. We had 25 employees and was growing at 8 times the industry average and was 4 times as profitable before it was acquired. Clients that have worked with me have seen an increase of up to 40% in employee productivity and almost 2 times increase in profits. I've hired and trained hundreds of employees over the last 20 years of business ownership, oftentimes with a 90% retention rate. I'm a certified master insight coach, certified business coach, and I'm happily married to my wife, Corinne, since '09. I have 2 amazing kids, Asher and Olivia, and today we close on a house, which is very exciting. So a little personal side note there. Let's get into it. What exactly would you say you do here? I don't know if this screenshot resonates with anyone. It's from a movie back in the 90s called Office Space, and they're having a conversation with a sort of middle manager that supposedly communicates client requests down to the software engineers. And that's my question for you is, do your employees know what they do here? Gallup did a survey and found out that 50% of employees do not know really clearly what their role is in the company. 50%, which means you have half your employees or half employees, they don't know. So they're less likely to be engaged. They worry more. They have increased stress. They're increased lonely. They have a higher level of loneliness. And then you have the 50% that are really clear on what they do. They're more efficient. They're more effective. They're more profitable. And they're 87% less likely to leave. So there's a huge disconnect between employees that know what they're doing and why they're here and employees that don't, that are maybe just sort of lost. So how do we solve this? Or actually, why is this the case? I think one of the primary reasons is that we think titles and maybe loosely formed job descriptions provide clarity. But titles alone, they don't. For example, this head of client experience. You have a position, and it can be any position, but let's take head of client experience. What are their responsibilities? Well, let's take a look. We got maybe there's onboarding, maybe it's training, maybe it's resource library, NPS scores, looking at churn, uh, client testimonials, this laundry list of potential responsibilities, and they change. They change depending what company you work for, who your boss or manager or the owners at the time, maybe the strategic objectives or mission of the current quarter or current year. So title alone does not provide much clarity. Even job descriptions, where it just says these are the things you do, they're usually not much effort's put into them. They're usually copied from someone else's job description on Indeed or somewhere else, and they don't really align employees' responsibilities to where business owners want to take the business. So what can we do about it? Well, there's a tool I use. It's called employee success agreements, and I use that language very intentionally because the purpose with a success agreement is it's an agreement. It's a two-way conversation. It's not a description. It's not a list of requirements. It's a conversation, an agreement between two parties that say this is what it looks like to be successful if you work here, and from the employee standpoint, okay, this is what I'm agreeing to do if I choose to work here. What these will do is they will remove owner bottleneck. They will make managerial conversations a heck of a lot easier, and they'll increase employee productivity. So let's look at what one looks like. So here's an example of Sophia Bennett, staff accountant, and I'll zoom in on all these individual areas. But this is the high level front page of her ESA. It is a very clearly defined roles and responsibilities, and sort of why this position exists in the company. So let's look through these parts. First is the position's purpose. So for this role, supports financial reporting and month-end processes, achieves this by handling journal entries, reconciliations, geo support. The firm benefits from efficient financial workflows and scalable delivery. So most business owners don't even have a purpose statement of why this position exists. But if we can get clear of why this position exists, everything else starts to fall in place. And for this individual, scalable delivery, the business owner doesn't want to have to keep doing this. They're hiring people so that you can do more outbound, more deliverable work without more effort on the business owner. So that is how this role positively impacts the business, and for small business owners, impacts the owner. Next, we have positions contribution. So almost every position needs to at some point pay for itself. There needs to be some ROI, or when times get lean, that position's probably not going to be around. So for this one, well, and another thing is everyone thinks that the employees know the sort of the high level financials of the business, how it makes money, revenue, profit, and especially in accounting firm, you would hope that'd be the case. But a lot of employees work in a siloed type of mindset where they're doing their thing. They don't know what's going on the other side of the business, and they're so focused on just their thing. But I want to educate the employees and empower them with this kind of knowledge. So in this example, the firm generates revenue primarily through recurring and project-based services, turns that revenue into profit by delivering these services efficiently, retaining clients, and optimizing staff capacity. The staff accountant improves profit by producing accurate deliverables that reduce senior staff workload. And that's where the magic is right there. When you have a good employee and you tell them, Sophia, here's how you can financially contribute to the company, is by optimizing staff capacity and reducing their workload. Now she can go on through her day doing her thing, but she can start hunting for other ways to reduce senior staff workload because that's how she can rise up in the business. That's how she can probably get raises and promotions, is if she knows exactly how she can best financially impact the business. Sometimes it's going to be revenue and top line based, a sales rep or something. Sometimes it's going to be profit, those are the deliverables. Sometimes it might be both if you have an admin person that's streamlining all aspects of it. But if you can really succinctly highlight what their financial contribution is, the best employees will take that and run with it. Next, I want to look at this critical result. I look at the critical result as if all else fails, if everything hits the fan, but there's one thing they do right, what is that thing? And in this example, it's 80% utilization rate. Now, it could be utilization rate tied to customer satisfaction. It could be realization rate. It could be a number of different measurables. But a couple key things is it has to be strategically aligned. It has to, wherever the business owner wants to take the business, this has to play a major role in that. The employee has to have autonomy over this number. It can't be something that they have no control over. It can't be, let's say, gross profit or top line revenue if they don't play a role in sales. It has to be something that they can have ownership over. Then next, we want to look at what are the rest of their responsibilities. And I have two columns. We have responsibilities, and it's not written here, but we have agreed upon performance standards. A lot of people have responsibilities, just these are the things you're going to do. You're going to do A, B, C. You're going to month-end close, you're going to do process improvement and reporting support. But they miss out on what are the agreed upon performance standards. You're going to do these things, but how do I know as a business owner and as an employee, how do we know if you're doing them well, doing them just good enough, or not doing them well? That's where, when we bring clarity into these conversations, the benefits are cascade through the relationship. So in this example, month-end close books in 7 days. Make sure by the 7th of the next month, all the books are closed. Implement one improvement per quarter. These are definable things that Alisa is going to get into a little bit more on during her time, that we can then, when we have conversations, the conversations can go a lot smoother. Lastly, is we have these strategic planning items. So in this example, we have 3 things in Q1: launch training, streamline reporting tool, and build out video client engagement process. Now, for small businesses, many aren't doing much strategic work. They don't have a strategic plan. They don't really have a blueprint or a map of what the next 12 months looks like. Ideally, if they do, then the next thing is you want to bring your employees in, because if you only have 5 or 10 or even 20 employees, they can play a role in helping you attack these strategic initiatives. And when they do, they'll engage more, they'll take on a greater level of an ownership mindset mentality. So what I like to do in ESAs is create the strategic plan, then highlight what employees are going to sort of be in charge of what areas, and they go right on the ESA. So they know, January 1st or January 2nd, you're looking at for the next quarter, I know exactly what I need to do. So that is a high-level overview of the different parts of an ESA. So now I mentioned a couple of things. They'll remove owner bottlenecks, they'll make managerial conversations easier, they'll increase employee productivity. Let's focus on how. How do they remove owner bottleneck? Well, I've come up with sort of 5 ownership levels. It's really just 4 plus 1. There's the task follower, which has very little or no ownership. And then there's task owner, process owner, results owner, and growth owner. And what ESAs can do is they can communicate where the employee is on the spectrum per responsibility. So if you look at, a task follower, they're just doing what they said they need to or are supposed to do. On the owner's perspective, doesn't help their time, doesn't help with decision making, and it doesn't help them with their strategic planning. As we move down this list, there's greater benefits to the business owner. As the employee becomes a task owner, they can start doing the task fully on their own, and they can even delegate maybe basic functions. So now there's a little bit of relief for the business owner, but the owner is still making all the decisions. Everything still flows through the business owner. I don't know how many here have experienced where they feel like that every decision, everything flows through them if you're a business owner. Well, that's because oftentimes it's because the employees don't have a level of ownership in their domains. So once we move past task owner, now we have process owner. So now they're looking at how can we, make slight improvements or solve repeat issues. Now, from the owner's perspective, they're getting their time back. Some decisions or most decisions are still made by the owner. Most strategic focus is still on the owner's plate, but there starts to be this shift. But next is where we shift down to from process owner to results owner. And this is where a lot of things start to improve because now we've agreed upon that this employee in this domain, whatever their domain is or responsibility, they now own it. They own the outcomes, the performance. They are focused on really fully owning it. That means the business owner, they get their time back. They can focus on different, better decisions, and they have more time to focus on strategy. Lastly is the growth owner. And the growth owner is when they own the domain and they're empowered to also improve it. Whatever that area is, that's their role. And this is where the business owner can almost take a chairmanship role where they're high level overseeing. They're looking at dashboards and they're looking at P&Ls or balance sheets. They're looking at high level reports on a regular cadence to see how this employee is doing in their domains. They get their time back. The decisions are really only strategic and they have plenty of time and freedom to work and focus on strategy because they're not doing the day-to-day. What that looks like on the back end with ESAs is this doesn't show up on the PDF you hand employee. This is in the software that I've developed. Sophia's ESA has month-end close, journal entry, reporting support, and we have these different ways of rating each employee and where they fall on how good they are, how much they enjoy it. Is this what they should be doing? How much ownership do they have? And is this responsibility critical to the business? I want to focus on ownership though. So in this example, Sophia has a level 2. So she owns the task, but nothing more. If you can intentionally create a plan to where she can move up these levels to where she moves to a process owner, eventually the result and growth owner, that's going to continue, that's going to prevent you from feeling like you either need to micromanage or really oversee at a high level. And eventually, with intentionality, uh, consistently moving your employees responsibility by responsibility from these lower levels to these higher levels is how you will gain freedom and stop being the bottleneck in your business. Next, we have making managerial conversations easier. I don't know about any of you, but I've more than once put off having a performance or managerial conversation because it was just really uncomfortable. I mean, I'll I'll fall on the sword. I've gone a year or two back in my previous business early on where I would just put it off. I didn't want that uncomfortableness, and I would have done things much differently now. But I think it's real. And I talked to a lot of business owners. They hate having these uncomfortable conversations. Well, ESAs make these conversations significantly easier. How do we do that? Well, because it's called an agreement. An agreement is something that's mutually agreed upon. So at some point in the relationship, when we implement ESAs, we're creating this agreement. And now this agreement exists as sort of a third party in the conversation. It becomes a single source of truth that you can guide all of your performance conversations around. Uh, I know, let's say you hire a new employee and Sarah's going to train them one day and then Jim's going to train them the next day. And they're training on the same process. Oftentimes the employee gets pretty frustrated because Sarah does it one way, Jim does it a different way. There's no single source of truth. There's no documented SOP or video or screen share walkthrough. And it's the same with this. When you don't have a single source of truth, conversations can be significantly more challenging. But when you do have them, they become conversations instead of confrontations because you bring this third party of an ESA into this conversation. Now it's you, your employee, and their ESA. Ideally, if done right, they already know how they're performing before they walk into the room. And when you do that, they become a self-managing employee. So now you're not having a confrontation because they know where they're at. It turns into a coaching conversation where you're curious and you can use your curiosity to look at their ESA, these agreed upon performance standards, and see, hey, where are we at on all these? And let's talk about it. What's happening? What happened last quarter that this didn't happen? Or, what are you doing that's excelling so well in this area that some of your coworkers at the same level can start doing? And it becomes a way more relaxed and productive conversation than just being this, top-down managerial confrontational conversation. So those are a couple of ways that an ESA can make managerial conversations a heck of a lot easier. And when you can address issues upstream, closer to the source instead of waiting, you're going to retain your best employees because they're not frustrated that you're not talking to that person. And there's all sorts of benefits. You won't walk into work every day dreading thinking about having this conversation. It won't sort of sap your energy from day-to-day work, regretting that you're not having the conversation. It makes owning a business a lot easier. And lastly is increase employee productivity. Uh, One of the biggest productivity um, thieves is a lack of focus. I know for me, if I'm doing work and then someone knocks on my door, or for some reason I say, I need to check my email right now, I lose 10, 15, 20 minutes of productivity because I got distracted. Now, the ESAs are not a magic pill. They won't solve distractions, but they will really bring where employees should be focused on to the forefront. Critical result, primary responsibilities. Yes, they're going to do a lot more than that, but when done correctly, employees are very clear on where they need to show up most of the time to move the company forward, to help the business owner build the business that they want to build. That is how an ESA can really help increase employee productivity. Lastly, the ESAs, employee success agreements, are part of a bigger system that I've developed that includes an ownership matrix where we look at all the employees, because the ESA is just the front face and the back end has a lot more data, and sees where are the low-hanging fruits when it comes to who's not acting like an owner and who is, and strategically where can we take these people and take your employees and move them up that ownership ladder. Workload optimizer, looking at all the work you're doing, all your work by employees, and seeing, what, it seems like that employee doesn't enjoy or isn't good at X, but that employee is. And now you can start shifting responsibilities because you have a really solid objective view of who's good at what and who should be and should not be doing it. So you can start to optimize who does what. A decision-making dashboard. This is where we take your KPIs and we put them into a dashboard, and strategically we figure out what needs to happen when, and then when the KPIs either hit that threshold, a high threshold or low threshold, you've already decided what needs to happen, and you don't have to decide in the moment. You don't have to wait for the fire to be burning before you decide how we're going to get out. You create a plan to get out, and then if a fire comes, you have the plan. The profit map, which shows what levers you can pull to increase profits. If it's increasing your win rate, changing your pricing structure. What happens if your employee productivity increases a little bit? We can really map out what that looks like in a business. Burnout Buster, it's a fun one. It analyzes your employees and says who's most likely or potentially thinking about leaving. They say 50% employees are open to working somewhere else, not they're not all active, but they're open to it. I use this tool to highlight who might be at risk of leaving, and who are we okay if they left, and who's critical that, man, if they left, they would be hard to replace, and they were such a great employee, we're gonna maybe put a little extra effort in keeping this employee. Capacity analyzer, which looks at how much capacity you have and when you need to hire the next employee or shift things. And lastly, not lastly, but last one on the list is a purposeful incentive plan, which ties a lot of this together and is a really structured approach to incentivize the employees based on their personal performance, based on company financial performance, and based on quarterly objectives. So it's all sort of a package deal, and ESAs play a sort of a central cog in that. And with that, I would like to pass it over or pass it back to Alisa.
Thank you, Andrew. That was, well, I love this because you talked about right people, right seats. And that's so important. And getting and how to move employees up that ladder to get to ownership, because
Hmm.
those are the employees that we want. Those really make the difference. So once you do have everybody in the right seat, how do you measure those people? And I'm going to show you how we have developed this. Um, there we go. Um, and this is about creating employee success metrics. How do your employees know that they're winning? So we liken this to, to sports. They really need to know. And so we need to create simple, measurable metrics that are tied to this employee success agreement. And it's going to help drive performances to empower your team members to own their positions. When they have ownership, all the other things fall into place. Everything that Andrew was talking about, they're more engaged. They love what they do. All those things happen. So why do employees need the success number? Well, love him or hate him. Tom Brady had a really good quote. Football is such an easy game to figure out. You just have to look at the scoreboard to know who's winning. And I love this because it's super simple. It takes everything down to this scoreboard. So, what happens if employees are unclear? And again, back to what Andrew was saying, building clarity makes a huge difference. So, there's no scoreboard to track the progress. They don't know if they're winning or losing, or even moving the ball down the field. They're unclear of what winning means. How do they know where to put their efforts? And then there's a difficulty in knowing if they should celebrate or they need to course correct. And when employees have clear success numbers, they take ownership over their performance and they understand exactly what's expected of them. And after working with so many lawyers, they've all told me that lawsuits happen because of unclear expectations. So let's all avoid that. Um, so, how do you create this success metric from your ESA? So, first, as Andrew showed you, you have to identify what those key responsibilities are and pick the 3 to 5 most critical responsibilities that actually drive business value. And it can be sales targets or production output. Client satisfaction scores are a big one, and your project completion rates. And I'm going to go into this in a little more detail. So, just determine what those are. Are you going to convert? You're going to take all your qualitative goals and turn them into quantitative measures. And you have to make sure that these measurements are within the employee's control. They have to have ownership of it, but also be able to change it so they can make that course correction. If they're able to see that they're not winning, that they can have control over it. If you give somebody a number and they actually have no control over it, and we've made this mistake before, just saying, this is not something that is easy to do. Otherwise, everybody would already do this. Um, they have to come to you and say, like, this doesn't make sense. I can't change this. I have no control over how many leads come in when I have nothing to do with the lead process. So, and then this is also an important factor in coming up with your success metrics for your employee is balancing those leading and lagging indicators. So, leading indicators are predictive metrics and they help you monitor the progress. And then what happens is you're going to adjust the strategies. The lagging ones are the ones they're looking back. So they've already happened in the past and it's confirming if the goal was met. So it makes sure that you have a balance of those because the leading ones you can adjust as it's going on. The lagging ones are after the fact. So this is a list of success metrics. So the metric is like these are centered on accounting firms. So close the books in 7 days. It's a leading type of metric. And the purpose is to have a speedy delivery of financial reporting. And it also shows that we have operational discipline. Where are they going to get this information from? Where can you pull this information from? You're going to go to your task management system. And the next screen, we're going to talk about how we're going to pull those financials. But these are just examples of a couple of leading ones and a couple of lagging ones. So, obviously, if you're not in accounting, these don't make sense. But think about it. If you are in a different type of firm, what would be a leading thing? You know, getting having some internal processes that if you can get those done and reviewed and they're successful, example is like a journal entry. I mean, that is something that it needs to be done. It needs to be done accurately. Someone else in the firm is checking that to make sure that it's correct. Um, even the quarterly workflow improvement, that can be across any business. It's not specific to accounting, but it's a continuous refinement of doing that workflow and making sure that it gets better every time. So you're going to take those, once you've identified what they are, you're going to put them into your financials. So, and again, the key here is keep it simple. The best, the best metrics that you can have are ones that are easy to calculate and that they're easy to understand. And most importantly, you can easily act upon them. So if you have something that's complex, we have found in with our clients and even internally, if we have a complex way to get to a number, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't. If you have to pull from 6 different places and then do a percentage of it, it's not going to happen. It really needs to be very clear what the number is, why you have it, and it has to be easily obtainable. So a way to start this is to add that simple number to existing financials. If there's something you're already checking, can you add another column? Link this performance data from your CRMs, from your POS things, from your project management, from your task management systems, and then set up automated weekly or monthly monitoring of these numbers. And sometimes, and it depends on the number, and it depends on your industry. Are you going to look at this number weekly, monthly? Sometimes numbers are better looked at quarterly because those fluctuations will level out over a quarter and you're actually going to see if it makes a difference to make a change. And then create simple dashboards for individual employees so that they can see if they're winning and they can take course correction on those leading indicators and also know if they can celebrate for those lagging ones. And again, you can do it in a simple spreadsheet, but just know that like QuickBooks, your CRMs, all these programs, a lot of them have this reporting already in it. We use a program called Clockwork, and you can bring in all this information and create a dashboard, and everyone can look at it. So the next step is a manager's role. And Andrew brought this book to us called The Collaborative Way. And I loved it. And we are currently reading it with our team because there is nothing more important than practicing a lot of the values that are in this book. But the first one is generous listening. And this is really important when looking at your metrics and when working with your employees. You're going to have conversations, as Andrew mentioned, over confrontations. And this is where you need to look at your numbers and you're going to look at them without a filter because it's really easy to look at this number and say like, oh, well, they were upset last week, or, oh, their manager's kind of picky, so maybe this number isn't real. You have to look at patterns rather than these isolated incidences. So looking at these numbers without having that filter in the back of your head, and then asking these curious questions about to your employee, what do you see in these numbers? And what factors contributed to this result? And what can we do to improve this? And let them having ownership, asking them questions about what actions can we take? What actions can you take? And always focus on the solutions. In my experience, employees make mistakes. It just happens. It's the way it is. You're working with human beings. We would love them to be perfect, but no one is. But let's focus on what the solution is, what specific action steps we can take to get them back to that number. Do we need to change the number? Are we measuring the wrong thing? Those are all things that we need to focus on. And then second, set those check-in dates so that we can review the progress, and then you can change them quickly and take action steps so that your employee doesn't feel like they're failing. They completely understand the expectations, and you can work together as a team to change these things. So, empowering employees with winning numbers benefits your business when they have clear expectations, and it actually gives you a way to give them incentives, rewards, and recognition. And it also allows you to have an earlier identification of issues, and not only just performance issues of your employees, but also of your company. Um, you can have employees have accountability. They're going to start taking ownership because they own that number. In EOS, we talk about everybody has a number and you own that number, and it's awesome. I've seen my team grow immensely when they have started taking ownership of a number. And then you get improved business results because everybody's rowing in the same direction, because their metrics are based on your goals for the whole company. Um, so some of the next steps you can take: review your existing ESAs for each position, and then draft these success metrics. And I say here, for one department, you can start with one person and just focus on that one person and have it be somebody. It can be your right hand. I have a chief of staff. I could set this up for her, and I could work together on it and say, like, what works. I have numbers that I have to complete, and she holds me accountable. So you could start small. Don't get overwhelmed by this. Start small. Start with 2 numbers so you can get started on it, because the worst thing that happens is people feel overwhelmed and don't even get started. So get employee input on the proposed metrics. Make sure that they feel like, yeah, I can do this. I have ownership. I can do this. I have access to those numbers. I have control over that. And then once you have success in place, replicate it. You can scale this across all departments, across every employee. And when employees know the score, they really take ownership of their game. So it's been a game changer for my company, and we have rolled this out, and it has absolutely created incentive for our team, ownership, and has had everyone rowing in the same direction. All right. Um, does anyone, there's no questions in our Q&A. So I'm gonna think that everybody got this and everybody's spot on. If you didn't, we're going to be providing the recording. Also, I am going to put the in the link here, everybody's, this is Andrew's link that everybody can see. And also I'm going to put in my contact information also. And everybody should be able to get that. I just have to grab it.
I got one comment, Alisa, while you're doing that. A lot of the pushback I'll hear is, well, we don't want to just turn employees into like measuring KPIs just nonstop and really overdo it. And I can appreciate that. And I agree with that. I think two thoughts I have is, first, if there's nothing in it for the employees on the back end, if they perform at a higher level, then they will start get jaded. And my second thing is, my son he joined a flag football league a year ago. And he was super excited. Saturday morning, first game, we were going there. And I had to tell him that they weren't keeping score. And he was pretty disappointed. He's a competitive guy, but I said, "Hey, son, just want to let you know they're not keeping score." And he almost didn't want to play. And I think it's similar with employees, that your best employees, they want to know the score. They want to look up at that scoreboard and see, how are we doing as a company? How am I doing? If they don't, if they want nothing to do with that, you probably don't want them on your team. So you really, I think human nature wants to see how we're doing. I mean, very few people would watch any, basketball games or football games or anything if there was there was never a score and no one actually won. That would be a pretty boring pastime to watch those athletic events. So something to keep in mind is people, they want to know how the company's doing and how they're doing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Someone had told me wherever there is incentive, that's where the focus is going to be.
Hmm.
So if the incentive is like, I need to win this, and I don't know about you, but I have a competitive team. We just recently went to a conference and there was a competition on the conference app about how many booths you could go to, how many people you could meet, and my crazy team won. One person on my team got first place, and then someone got second place, and it was phenomenal. And I had 4 people in the top 10 because there was something to win. They knew there was a number and they went out there to win. People like
You,
this.
you
That's
got a
why the
good team.
conference created it.
Yeah.
You know, they knew that this is something that people like to do. So don't forget that. It really is, when you have that clarity around it and they know how to win, they're going to do it.
Hmm.
Andrew, thank you so much. Our contact information is in the Q&A, and everybody who's here and everybody who's not here is going to get a recording of this. And Andrew, I'm excited to do this again. So
Absolutely. Lisa, this has been great. And you run a great business. And like you said, you have a high performing team and great job sharing what you shared today.
all right. Thank you too. All right. Take care, everybody.